Hi everyone. Okay, so today marks a week since my mum passed away. And I have to say I've been up and down throughout this week. I've gone from feeling like a sword has impaled my heart and crying hysterically, griping pain, so much, to feeling numb, to feeling fine, to angry, and then in pain again, and then fine, and then angry. It's just up and down all the time. And then I had a day where I seemed to be okay, and then the next day I was walking to the shops, and I just had that sudden feeling of I want to call my mum. I want to talk to her because that's what I would do. If I were ever out, like going to the shops or something, sometimes I would just phone my mum. And then I realised, oh, I can't I can't even just, sometimes people text their deceased loved ones or they leave them a voicemail. I can't even do that because my mum's phone didn't have a voicemail. Sorry if you hear some laughing or whatever, or background noise. The other half is watching telly. Um, it's I've renewed some relationships with members of my adoptive family over this. We've talked about the funeral, which will be in a couple of weeks. Only 10 people will be able to attend because of the coronavirus. Me and my other half will be going, and I think my mum's other kids will be going. So there won't be a lot of room for many other people. But I have said though that once this whole lockdown has gone, once this whole lockdown down has gone and everything gets back to normal, we should get together and do a proper memorial for my mum. And that's something I'm really looking forward to. Um, I was thinking as well in the week that, I mean, it's easily said, nobody can ever replace your mum, but it's absolutely true. It's not just that they're your mum; it's the position that they held within your life. I mean, as I became independent from my mum, financially and materially and everything, I didn't need her for anything. And I knew that, leading up to her death, I didn't need her because I didn't need money from her. I didn't need her to cook food for me. I didn't need her to buy things for me. I didn't need her to do anything for me. If anything, she would need her kids to do things for her because she couldn't do everything all the time. But I did need her emotionally because she had your parents, you know. I know people have different bonds with their parents depending on their experience with their parents, but she had such a special place, and she was the only parent I have because I was raised by a single mother. That she had such a special place that I couldn't, even if I didn't need her for anything materially, she was kind of like a lifelong best friend. She was someone who I couldn't I couldn't exist without. I could not have in my life. And I knew my mum extremely well. I mean, really well. I mean, I don't know whether it's an autism thing or anything, but I don't. I can't always predict everybody. I can't always read everybody, even if I know them well, even if I am friends with them or whatever. On less than their fingers on one hand, count how many people I can really read. And my mum was someone I could read like a book. I could tell you what her kind of response would be to something. I could tell you what she would say to me. Sometimes it was like playing bingo. Whenever my mum phoned, I would say to the other half, I'll bet you anything she's asking me to go and get her some cigarettes. And she would. Or she'd phone and say, "Did you call me, love?" No, you would see my name on your phone if I did. Um, I also recently found a voicemail that my mum last left me nearly 4 weeks ago. Um, I saved it and I recorded it on my PC, so I've got the last voicemail she left me where she said that she loved me. It was really good to hear her voice, and I can't return that call. I can't, you know, she used to, certain things she did used to just do my head in, because I'd phone her and she wouldn't have her hearing aids in, so she wouldn't be able to hear me. And she couldn't put them in while she was on the phone because they'd start ringing, or like making a, horrible squeaking noise. But she'd pretend to hear me. She would sort of go, over after I'd said something quite bad, because she couldn't hear me, so she was fake hearing me. And I was talking to one of my sisters earlier today, or was it, no, yesterday, not the sister I've previously spoken about, another sister. And and she and her husband used to laugh because mum just suddenly started talking about baking trays when that never came up. It's because my mum thought that she'd said something and she hadn't. And it wasn't my mum's fault, obviously, but it sort of, it used to say, look, I used to say to her mum, if you don't hear me, if you can't hear me, just ask me to repeat. I don't mind doing that. I mean, being asked to repeat yourself a number of times is annoying, but I would rather her have done that rather than her pretend to hear me and not hear what I'd said. Because sometimes I'd turn up and then she would ask me something and I said, I already told you that on the phone. And she'll, oh, sorry, darling, I didn't hear you. And I was also talking to my sister and saying, what would mum say if she were here? She would say, and I quote, she would say, don't be silly. If we're ever having a cry, she put her arm around me and or whoever and her kids and just say, don't be silly, get on with it. And I think at one point in my life I'd said to mum, well, what would I do if you were to die? I mean, it's not a question of if, because we all die, but nobody can predict in what order. I mean, one of my other sisters died 5 years ago, and your parents don't expect to bury their kids, and it's an awful thing to happen. My mum would say to me, her response to me would be, whatever do I do? One of those things, isn't it? That was mum all over. That was how she would respond to things. It's also funny. I think because my mum was in her late 80s. When I was growing up with me and my half sister, people used to think she was our nan because she was older, and then they said, oh, she must have been really old when she had you. Well, no, she's our adoptive mum. She adopted us when she was in her mid-50s, and so yeah, it was kind of like living with a grandma, but called her mum in a way. But she had her way of parenting was kind of old-fashioned in a sense. But those were the values that she held on to, and just things that she used to do. It sort of brings a smile to my face now. Even at the time, it used to make me roll my eyes. And like a couple of anecdotes are that a few years back she phoned me and said, is your car in the garage? And I said, no, mum, my car will never fit in the garage, meaning the garage at home. And then she went, no, I mean, is it in for having a service? And I said, no. Why you ask? And she said, well, I've just had a text from, I don't know where it is, saying that your car's ready for pickup, and I'm just wondering if our numbers got mixed up. And I went, no, my car's not having a service, and why on earth would your number get mixed up with mine? And she said, well, I just thought that could happen. I said, mum, the only way that a garage would have, or a service station would have, your number is if I'd given it to them. Why would I give them your number for me? I've got a landline, a work number, and a mobile. And my other half has a number. And she couldn't understand that. But it was really weird. Another one which I never forgot, I never let her forget this, was before she moved in with my brother, I went round and she said, "Well, we need to go shopping." So I would push her in a wheelchair. She couldn't walk at this point, and then we get her one of those special trolleys that you could hook onto the wheelchair. So I went to Morrison's, and she'd given me a shopping list, and I don't know what she was thinking when she wrote it, but she intended to write Diet Coke, but it came out as Diet Cock. And I never let her forget that. And a bit later, when the sister I was talking about earlier, when she phoned, I said, "Oh, Mum, give us the phone." I had to tell her the story. I had to. At the time, I was playing Pokemon Go, and I had my phone out all the time we were shopping. I don't know how I managed it, and I really shouldn't have. I had to spend time with my mum. But you know how addictive that game was. Um, while I was paying for my mum's shopping, I said, "Mum, could you hold my phone for me?" And she went, "Okay, that's fine." And as I was doing it, she went, "Erin, Erin, Erin." She sounded panicking, and she went, "Erin, take it back. It rattled." No, it didn't rattle, Mum. A Pokemon spawned. Oh my God, she used to say some weird things. It just. And when I was 18 and I came out like 18, 19, and I started going to gay bars and stuff, I said, "I don't know how to talk to people. I don't know how to approach people. You know, I'm too coy." And she said to me, "Oh, just go up to somebody and say, 'Are you courting?'" Mother, people don't say that anymore. Yeah. She was she was very she was a funny person, but funny in a good way. Um I could I remember one time because there was a bit of drama when I was in my teens over somebody whose name I will not say, whose position I won't say. And I know there were certain things that my mum shielded me from, that she wouldn't tell me in front of me. She would speak to the other adult members of the family, but not me. And I think I was about 14 at the time. I was in the kitchen, and as I was coming back in and opened up the door to the living room, my mum looked at me and immediately stopped talking. She was talking to my sister-in-law, and I said, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "Oh, I was just about to say something." And I thought, "Oh no, better not." And I said, "No, Mum, you were talking about this person, and you just didn't want me to hear it." And then I could always tell when I was right, because she'd go, "Oh," as if, yeah, she'd been found out. I was like, "No, you're talking about that person." I didn't hear her. I could just tell that, there were things that she didn't want me to hear. And I said, "Don't worry about it. I'm off upstairs. Talk all you like." And so, as I said, I could read her so well. I could always tell when there was something up. And she would also, and this used to really do my head in, is that if she did need something from me, if she needed me to go to the shops for her or something, she wouldn't actually ask me. She would phone and she would hint. So she'd phone and say, "Hi, hun," or no, she wouldn't say hun. She said, "Hi, love, how are you?" And I go, "Hiya, mum." And then she'd go, "What are you up to today?" That's her saying, "If you're going down the town, or if you're going to Morrison's or Sainsbury's, you couldn't get me a few things, could you?" And sometimes she'd say, "I'd like to come with you," but then I'd have to get the wheelchair in the car and everything. Um, and so, and quite a lot of the time, whenever she phoned, she would say, "What you doing today?" And then she'd say, "You going downtown, or you doing any shopping?" And I'd immediately be like, "Mum, what do you want?" Because I knew that she would want something. And sometimes she would just phone and I'd say, "Look, Mum, what do you want?" I would rather you just straight say to me, "Erin, I need some cigarettes. Can you get me some? Or can you get me the paper or some milk?" But she would always hint, and I used to tell her off so many times for it, but she still kept doing it. And at one point, she phoned me and said that she wanted me to get her some cigarettes on the quiet. And I don't know why. She wanted me to slip them to her without my brother knowing. She was I think she was a bit embarrassed because they had people over and she didn't want them to know that how much my mum smoked. And I refused, actually, at that point. I think that's one of the only times I ever refused to do something for it, because that to me was dishonest. But that was only the one time she ever did something like that. And then sometimes if I was busy and I would not be able to do something for her, and I'd say, "Look, Mum, I can't do this for you," she would go, "Oh." Oh, that's a shame. Oh, darling, and then I'd go, yeah, shame, see ya, because I knew she would be trying to manipulate me into doing stuff for her. And again, at the time, it used to do my head in, but now I just think, well, that was just mum. I went round to hers one day and she said to me, "Are you going up the dump anytime soon? What do you want taken?" And she went, "Oh, just my dressing gown and a box of cards." I said, "Mum, you can put that in the flipping wheelie bin." You know, it just little things about that. I mean, me talking about mum, it just brings a smile to my face because she was quirky like that. Um, and we were watching Emmerdale once, and there was a scene where a woman gave birth in the back of a van. And then, my mum had 4 kids of her own. She went, "Oh, it doesn't happen like that." And I'm like, "How? What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, he would have taken her knickers off." And I'm like, "Mother, they're not going to show that on a soap, but you have to take it that they're already off. They're not going to show you every detail." I do remember showing my mum Gimme Gimme Gimme, the sitcom, and Mrs. Brown's Boys. It was I do remember when Linda LaHughes and Gimme 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 made that joke to Tom when he was reading his star signs, and she said, "Is the moon in Uranus?" My mum was drinking a cup of tea at the time and nearly spilt it. She was a bit prudish, my mum. She was quite old-fashioned, but at the same time she didn't mind, you know, watching new things or anything. And I showed her Mrs. Brown's Boys particularly because it's set in Southern Ireland, not far from where she originally came from, because she moved to the UK when she was 9, I think, 8 or 9. So yeah, her family was originally from Ireland, and she had a very thick accent, and her and her siblings dropped their accents because at the time people used to get, have the mickey taken out of them for their accents. And so yeah, I think at the time was also trilingual. She could speak English, Gaelic, and Latin. But now, later in life, she couldn't remember any of Gaelic, and she couldn't do the accent anymore. But yeah, I mean, just talking about my mum like this just sort of makes it, because her influence still goes, and then it's almost as if there's a nice tranquility and calmness that I can remember my mum and the things that she used to do that used to make me go, "For God's sake, mother." And they're not terrible things, but just used to do my head in a little bit. But now I can just smile and go, that was my mum. That was who she was. She was a bit cheeky. She could be a little bit rude. I had to tell her later in life to say her pleases and thank yous, because she would just say, "Oh, Erin, I'll get you to do this for me." And "You will you, mother?" She goes, "Please." So I think it's, as I said, she was quite old-fashioned, and I think back in the 30s when she was born, and she grew up in the 30s, 40s, is that parents didn't say please or thank you to their kids. It was do this, do that. So that's just what she was used to. But yeah, she was funny. She really, really was funny. I was having a good old laugh with my sister about how she would just ask random questions, or she'd make random statements. And if she had the remote control in her hand, she wouldn't just point it. She would literally hold it up towards the telly and push it really hard and then release. And when I showed her a touchscreen phone, she couldn't get the hang of that. She kept going like that to it. It's like, "Mum, you don't have to do that. You don't have to punch the hell out of the phone." But yeah, so I'll keep talking about my mum like that, and I'll keep remembering her like that. And I have my moments where I have a wobble. I want to put a film montage together of my mum, some footage that my family have sent me, and I think some that I've got from my wedding, and lots of photos and everything. It's going to be a private film, but it's going to be really hard to face the rest of my life without her, because I've known her to be in my life right up to this point at the age of 36, and now she's not going to be in my life anymore. I won't be able to phone her for a natter. I won't be able to go around and have her for a cup of tea. She won't be able to come around here. won't be able to take her out shopping anymore. You know, I'll go to the shops for her. Give her a hand with her washing, or you know, she had so many medical conditions towards the end of her life. She was crippled, basically. She couldn't walk without a frame, but she still tried to maintain her independence, and I think that's why she fell so many times, because she was always trying to do things that she could do 20 years ago, and of course she couldn't. I've been looking up COPD and found that it's pretty much a terminal condition. You know, it's once you've got COPD, it will never go away because it's chronic, and it can just suddenly just get the better of you. And there are stages, just like there are stages in cancer. I need to do a bit more research about it, because I'm not sure how it really affects everybody. And it says, how do you know that COPD is, you know, causing the person to, you know, somebody's dying of COPD? And what, I mean, I only looked on Google, and it was just a list. And the things that they said that people would experience is exactly what my mother experienced. Lots of trips to the hospital for infections, difficulty gaining weight and keeping the weight on. My mother was so thin at the end. So that's just it. I'm gonna have to keep reminiscing about my mum in order to help myself through this, and remember that just because she's not here anymore, that doesn't mean she never was. I'm gonna get back into my YouTube stuff soon. I've got this week off work, and I'm hoping to do some more true crime, because I haven't done that for a while. There are a few different ones that I want to do. My mum wouldn't want me to put my life on hold, and I think pretty much anybody would say to their loved ones, don't put your life on hold, go and do the things that you enjoy doing. And that's what doctors have said to me before, is that in the time that you're sort of signed off with depression, or you're not doing well, is do things that make you happy, because you won't recover otherwise. So I'm going to do everything I can to enjoy the time that I have, because none of us know when it's our time. So thanks for watching, and you can expect some more from me soon. Bye everybody. Bye.